Ever wonder what goes into making those Muay Thai shorts you see everywhere these days? Well, get ready to kick things up a notch as we deep dive into Youth Sport Gear. They're a big name in Southeast Asia, and we're here to see if their investment opportunity packs a punch.
I'm ready to examine their game plan. Let's see what they're bringing to the ring.
Right. So they gave us this proposal, and it's fascinating how they're not just making gear, they've got this whole network of companies. Like, there's Youth Sport Gear, the main brand, obviously,
Yeah.
but then they have Thai T-shirt factory, TTF, handling the clothing side.
TTF. Yeah, they're a big deal in the Muay Thai world. What's smart, though, is that Youth doesn't just outsource everything. They've got danger equipment, too, for the heavy-duty stuff. This kind of structure makes me think vertical integration.
Vertical integration. Okay, now you're just using fancy business jargon on me. What does that even mean?
Okay, imagine instead of going to one place for fabric, then another for manufacturing, and finally somewhere else to sell it, you controlled every single step, all under one roof, or, well, under one company. That's basically what Youth Sport Gear is doing here.
So they're calling the shots at every level.
Exactly. And that often means they can ensure quality easier, maybe even keep costs down, and if the market changes, boom, they can adapt much faster. It's a good sign, usually.
Makes sense. No wonder their proposal keeps highlighting their strong foothold in Southeast Asia and the Middle East.
Smart move. Those markets are already all about Muay Thai and combat sports. They're starting from a position of strength, for sure.
But they're not just content with that, right? They're talking about breaking into the U.S. market, aiming big, wanting to be a major player in U.S. combat apparel. Ambitious.
Ambitious is an understatement. The U.S., that's a whole different ballgame. You've got the giants, Nike, Adidas, already dominating. Youth will need something special to stand out, more than just Muay Thai gear, you know? Maybe they're hoping the growing popularity of combat sports here will give them an edge.
That's a good point. We'll have to see how they plan to differentiate themselves. But, okay, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk numbers. Time to crunch some numbers. After all, that's what makes or breaks an investment, right?
Absolutely. You can't really assess an opportunity without understanding the financials.
Exactly. And Youth's proposal had some numbers that definitely caught my eye. Take Thai T-shirt factory, TTF, for example.
Okay, what about them?
Well, back in 2018, they were bringing in around $450,000 in revenue. Not bad, right?
Yeah, not at all.
But get this. By 2023, they hit $1.1 million. That's more than double in just 5 years.
Wow. That's some serious growth. What's driving that kind of increase?
That's the million-dollar question, literally.
Yeah.
But it looks like their strategy is working. And their projections show this upward trend isn't slowing down either.
Oh, really? What are they projecting?
By 2026, they're anticipating TTF alone to rake in over $3 million in revenue.
Dang, that's impressive. And what about Youth Sport Gear itself? Where do they stand?
Not too shabby themselves. They're projecting to hit over $1.5 million in revenue by 2026. Although, I did notice one thing.
What's that?
The proposal didn't really dive into the financials of those other companies like Danger Equipment, you know.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
It's all part of this big investment package, but they kept some cards close to their chest on those.
That's not unusual. Sometimes it's a strategic move. Focus on the big players first, then reveal more as things progress.
Makes sense. But hey, it's not just about bigger numbers, right? It's about making those numbers work smarter.
Efficiency, that's the key. You can have amazing products, but if your production process is a mess, you're limiting your growth.
Right. And Youth seems to get that. They keep mentioning automation,
Yeah.
improving efficiency in their production. They even want to use some of this investment for a brand new factory.
Now that's interesting. A new factory tells me they're serious about scaling up, getting those processes optimized.
Exactly. And by streamlining everything, they're projecting their profit margin to jump to between 30% and 35%. Music to any investor's ears, I'd say.
Absolutely. Shows they're thinking long-term about profitability, not just chasing quick wins, but building a sustainable business.
Okay, so speaking of investments, let's talk about what they're asking for. They want a cool $3.75 million.
That's a significant chunk of change. What's the game plan with that kind of investment?
$3.75 million is a big ask, no doubt. But they do have a pretty detailed roadmap of where that money's going.
Right, and that's key, isn't it? Investors want to see a clear plan.
Exactly. So part of it is acquiring equity stakes in a few different companies. We're talking 10% each for Youth Sport Gear itself, then TTF, Danger Equipment. Oh, and a piece of Banzai Trading's holdings, too.
Banzai Trading, right. They're the ones connected to those other companies like OG Fightwear and Gold Star Asia, if I'm remembering correctly.
You got it. So it's like With this investment, you're not just getting a slice of one company. You're tapping into this whole network of brands.
Exactly. Diversification. Always a good thing when you're talking investments. Helps spread the risk a little.
Makes sense. But wait, there's more. Land expansion for a new factory. Plus, they want to open 2 retail locations, prime spots, right in Central Bangkok.
Okay, now those are some power moves. Those retail locations aren't going to be cheap, that's for sure.
Right. Shows they're serious about building that direct connection with customers, not just relying on online sales and whatnot.
Totally. Plus, think of the data they can gather from those stores. Customer preferences, buying habits. It's valuable stuff.
For sure. Okay, and then of course, no business plan would be complete without mentioning working capital. Got to keep the lights on.
Right. Working capital. Think of it like the fuel that keeps the engine running. It covers all those day-to-day expenses that are absolutely crucial, but might not get a fancy line item in the proposal.
That's a good way to put it. Okay, but let's get down to brass tacks here. What's the potential return on investment? That's what investors really want to know, right?
Hopefully so. So their proposal suggests a 70-30 split on the profits from those new retail locations. 70% goes right back to the investors until they recoup that initial $3.75 million. They're aiming for a 5-year timeline for a full return on investment.
5 years, that's not exactly a quick turnaround, is it?
It's not the fastest, but it's not unheard of either, especially in this kind of market.
True enough. Okay, so let's say everything goes according to plan, 5 years down the line, the initial investment is repaid. What happens then?
Then, investors can expect a 10% dividend based on half the total profits from those retail locations.
Okay, so a little something extra to sweeten the deal? Not bad. But of course, like we've been saying, there are always risks. No investment is a sure thing. We've talked about their ambitious goals, the competitive landscape, the challenges of breaking into the U.S. market. It's a lot to consider.
For sure. It's like stepping into the ring. You gotta know what you're getting yourself into. Study your opponent, have a solid strategy, and be prepared for anything.
Well said. And there you have it, our deep dive into Yuth Sport Gear, their vision, their plans, and the potential opportunity and risks they present. Hopefully this has given you some things to think about. As always, the decision to invest or not is a personal one. Do your research, weigh the pros and cons, and make the choice that feels right for you. Until next time.